Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Today is the last day of the tax refund Kindle. I almost said tax act. This is so funny. All campaign. I almost said tax act. Tax refund Kindle cross promotion campaign, which I should get, underwritten by a company. That would be kind of fun. So you can get 40 plus books for 99 cents a piece. You can go to robbiesamuels.com/tax refund 25. Before I get any further into that, let me take a moment to introduce today's guests. You've finished your manuscript and you're ready to see your book in readers' hands. It's an incredible milestone, but here's the truth. Publishing your book is not the end of your journey, it's the beginning. While getting your book into print or onto an e-reader is rewarding, it's only one phase of your journey as an author. Marketing your book and building connections with readers is where the real work starts. It's about reaching the right audience, building relationships, and creating an ongoing impact. This is why I work with entrepreneurs to develop strategic book launch plans. Together, we'll identify your ideal readers and craft a roadmap to engage them from day one of your book launch and beyond. With a mix of virtual launch events, personalized outreach, and targeted content, I help you make sure your book becomes a tool for business growth, not just a single product. If you're looking for guidance on your journey, I invite you to schedule a 30-minute book launch brainstorming session. Let's talk about how you can leverage your book to reach more people, grow your influence, and achieve your business goals. Complete the form at booklaunchbrainstorm.com to get started. Now, today's panelists are going to share their experiences with marketing their books and discuss what worked, what didn't, and what they learned along the way. With me today, I have Amy Climer, wrote Deliberate Creative Teams, How to Lead for Innovative Results, a practical guide that shows leaders how to spark collective creativity, build a culture of innovation, and lead their teams to consistently deliver groundbreaking ideas. Kim Wells-Eley is the author of From Mess to Message, 10 Steps for Writing Your Book, a handbook for writers who feel stuck that will propel them forward or remembering why they are writing a book in the first place. Laura Ballerini wrote The Green Velvet Chair. Sometimes inspiration comes from the most unlikely places, a heartfelt collection of essays that celebrates the everyday art and inspiration all around us, encouraging readers to embrace their creativity and find beauty in unexpected places. Please join me in welcoming Amy, Kim, and Laura. Wow, what a team. I love this. So, Amy, I'm going to kick things off with you. I have some idea of, because I've been following your work for a while, about who your audience is for your book, but who is it that you wrote this book for?
This book is for business leaders who want their teams to be more creative and more innovative, but maybe they don't quite know where to start, or they're looking for a roadmap to follow. And the message of the book is that innovation does not happen by magic or by chance, that it's systematic. And so if you want to be creative, you have to be deliberate. And by the end of the book, leaders who read this book will learn how to help their team be more creative.
I love it. All right, we're going to hear much more about this later. Kim, chime in. Who did you have in mind when you're writing your book?
Absolutely. So I wanted to reach out to the writer who had the desire to write their book, but feels daunted, like, holy macaroni, how do I put my arms around this? I wanted to break it into easy steps, small bites, and make it so that by the end of the book, the person is pumped up and like, yes, I can do this.
I very much relates to the work that you do in the world. I love it. And Laura, how about you?
Well, for me, I'm a designer. My book is about art and design in everyday life. But when I first worked with my editor, we really determined that my audience was 30 women, 35 and over. They had careers. They were juggling family and relationships. And it was me sitting at a table, at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, talking to these type of women. But I have found that since I wrote the stories and it started launching the stories, that it's become more universal. So for me, I found that we're all artists in our own way, and it made the stories and the audience larger. And I actually had a book launch of my second edition last week, and there was a lot of men in the audience, right? And a lot of women. So it kind of changed as I went through the process of the book.
I love that. I think that's often happening when people are working on a book. It is important to start with a pretty focused audience, but often we find new markets are interested, new readers are interested. So Laura, this is your first book?
It's the second edition of my first book.
Second edition of the first book. And Amy, this is your first book, correct?
Yes,
Kim, if you've got other books?
Yes, this was my second book on my own, and I have a couple of collaboration books.
Okay, I'm going to come back to Kim in a second then to talk about that, what changed from one to the other. So Laura, when I come back to you talking about this, I always want to know, because there's a lot of people listening who have not yet written their first book, right? Like they're trying to get inspired, much like what Kim was talking about what she's doing with her book. But I'd love to know how you got over whatever inner dialogue was going on about writing a book. And Amy, I'm going to follow up and ask you that question in a moment so you can think about your answer. But did you have anything holding you back mentally, emotionally, or was it more tactical? You just needed to find the right support and you were all green lights?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. For me, I'm very shy and quiet. So I took a storytelling workshop years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, and I learned how to articulate more. I learned how to tell stories, and I realized that I could make people cry and make people laugh with my stories. So I realized, oh, maybe there's something here. So from there, that's when I started writing, and I found an editor, Kathy Sparrow. I think you know her. She's wonderful, and we've been working together since then. And for me, writing helped me find my voice, as
I
odd as
love
that
this.
sounds.
Kathy's one of our hub partners, the experts in the BizBook Pub Hub that folks can find at bizbookpubhub.com. I'm so glad you got to work with her. She's just a so kind and generous person. And I also love hearing, Laura, that you did this story writing kind of exercise, that you were part of that community, because that is, I mean, the best books have good stories in them, not just facts and figures. And so I think it gave you that confidence to keep moving forward when you realized you could have that emotional impact on other people. So I'm glad you didn't stay stuck in the not writing it because you didn't want to be visible, but now you're helping so many more people. Amy, coming to you, you and I know each other through the National Speakers Association. And there is a steady drumbeat in that space of you need a book, you're a professional speaker, you need a book. So I know that we needed a book, but how did you still decide to write a book? For you, as opposed to because there was this external messaging. What was the internal message?
Well, I've been wanting to write this book for about 10 years, and I honestly, I was stuck for quite a while, and I wanted to write it in part because not just within NSA. Yes, in NSA, people are all the time asking, where's your book? What's your book? But what I eventually was finding was clients were asking me that, or people that I would meet and start, talking about my work. They're like, oh, do you have a book? I'd love to buy it. I'm like, no, I don't. And so it felt like there was a need for it, and there was a request for it from people that would actually read it, from my readers. And it's all based on my dissertation research. So I wanted to get that research out in the world, because I do think one of the problems with research is that it goes to, these research journals, and 10 people read the article and it doesn't really get out there. And so I'm really excited that it's out there and people are able to access it.
I love that last point you made about academic and then trying to make it more publicly available. We have some writers amongst us who are just really good, Malcolm Gladwell being one, right? That do that really, really well. But when the author themselves is the person who wrote the dissertation and now has to figure out how to write it in a non-academic way, was that itself challenging to shift the language from whatever the version of the certain style that you need to have when you're in an academic setting versus what you ended up creating?
It was a little bit. I think what was more daunting was figuring out, how do I put this in a 150-page book I guess technically my dissertation was 150 pages, but it's just, there's so much that I put in the dissertation that I would never put in a book, right? Like no one cares about the confirmatory analysis results. However, I did get a lot of feedback that my dissertation was very readable, which that was quite a compliment. So I think it was more, adding in these stories, adding in the elements more from other researchers, kind of grounding it in kind of more real life examples that I don't know, it was challenging, but more than anything, it just took a lot of time, to do that and to bring that in.
Yeah. So. And Kim, when I come over to you, you've got an earlier book. What's the earlier book about?
Yeah, my first book was about people who do what they love for a living. I came to a crossroads where I was like, didn't get laid off myself, but most of my team got laid off. And I'm like, What now? What direction do I go in? Was doing some soul searching, was looking for that book to help me through it. I couldn't find that book. And I was like, okay, snap, this is my sign. I'm going to write that book. So took 2 years, wrote it, interviewed a number of people, self-published it. And then I told everybody and their brother, hey, I wrote a book. And ended up actually becoming a book coach out of that, which was really amazing. So yeah.
Okay, so now I'm curious, Kim, when you think about your goals for that first book, when you didn't know, like now you know so much more about your personal author journey and your work as a person who's professionally supporting other people through that journey. But with that first book, my friend Lois Kramer likes to say, and she wrote I just helped her with the second edition launch of her book, Book More Business, Make More Money Speaking. But she says that for her first book, the book got there, it was delivered to her house. She opened her back door and yelled, hey, everybody, I wrote a book. And that was like her marketing plan. And so it sounds a little bit like what you just said. So what were your initial goals for book one? And then as a follow-up, how did that change as you approached book two?
Oh, great. So my original intention was, honest to goodness, I was like, this is on my, humorously at the time I was in IT, and I was like, dadgummit, I want to use that English degree in my master's in writing and rhetoric for something. So I wanted to put it together and put it out there. Now I was so green that I thought just putting the book out there that magically everybody would come and buy it. And boy, was that a rude awakening. It was crickets, and it ended up. So for the second book, I was much better informed. I knew to have a launch team. I knew to talk about it. Yeah. So it was. I'm not a parent myself, but I imagine it's what somebody goes through if they have a first child. It's like, hey, I'm learning as I go along. The second child, you're better prepared.
Yeah. It's so funny. The first kid can get away with a lot of things because we just don't yet know that the limits are. So the thing about this, though, Kim, it's so interesting because you now probably interact with a lot of those very green new authors, writers who want to be authors. And that belief, like, if I publish it, they will come kind of, piece. And I'm going to come over to Amy because Amy, you did some pretty incredible work with your reviews. I was just happy to see. I was just looking at them. We'll talk about them in detail in a second, but I will say I watched your launch. Like, you had a launch. There was actually several launches happening at the same time amongst our circle of friends. So it was really interesting because like Lois Kramer's were happening, Jess Pettit and yours were all happening in the same few weeks. And it was interesting to see the level of buzz, the activity. So how did you first of all know to do that on your first book? Because you weren't green and thinking this will just get published and they will come. So how did you kind of know about that? And then how did you decide what approach to take? Like, what metrics were going to be important to you for this book?
I think I knew about this because of, in part, National Speakers Association and some other communities that I am a part of. I probably know, 200-300 people at least who have written a book. And so just, you pick up these little things over the years and just hearing and watching other launches. I've been a part of other people's launches. And yeah, so that's, I think, how I knew, like, yeah, you just put it out there, it's not going to happen. And I also just think I've seen that in my business in other avenues, like, just because you build a web page, no, it doesn't mean anyone's going to go there. So it's kind of the same idea. And I got a lot of ideas from, like, for instance, Jess Pettit. Her launch happened maybe 4 or 5 months before mine. And I actually talked to her, like, okay, what worked really well? And she gave me some great ideas. And one of the metrics that I was looking at, obviously book sales, I was excited about that. But then how many reviews could I get? And my understanding, well, from what I've heard, is that you need to get at least 100 reviews on Amazon. You need that triple digit. In fact, I think you talk about that, Robbie. And that just happened this week. So
yeah,
today is day 64 since I launched the book. And I'm really excited that, within 2 months I was able to get that. And I can get into the strategy of that if you want, but I'll just say that was one of the metrics that I was looking at.
Yeah, well, I'll come back for strategy in a second. For those that are listening, she has 105 reviews, and 102 of those are written reviews. Oh, sorry, I should say 105 ratings, which are the stars, and 102 are written reviews. And why that's important. So yes, hitting 3 digits, the triple digit, that's Amazon does some magical thing. Like my first book, when I hit around that number, people were emailed by Amazon my book to buy. Like, hey, you should buy this book, like as a front and center on the page. And I was getting forwarded those emails, and I was like, what? Like, I'm like, that's a thing.
That's so cool.
So all these different things started to happen, and I couldn't have foreseen even wanting, because I didn't know they existed. But the other thing I like is the ratio between your ratings and reviews is really high. And this is important because it is much easier to do a campaign to ask friends to just hit the 5 stars. That's no ask at all, actually. That's like liking a comment. Like, it has no impact. It doesn't really impact the social proof of the book, and it doesn't help with the discoverability, because when you also have a lot of reviews, the quantity reviews, the quality reviews, and the recency reviews, plus the number of verified reviews, which I'm going to glance now to see that as well, because that's another factor. So about half of your reviews are verified. Then all of that gets factored into where your book shows up based on the search results page once people write in keywords related to your topic, which in a crowded market, that's pretty important. So Laura, I'm curious, when you were getting started with your book, where you fall in this. We were just hearing Kim say, like, my first time out, I didn't really know much about this. I learned a lot. Amy learned a lot just like being in the swimming with other authors all the time, which I think is one way to learn. What was your expectation about what was going to be important for the book, and like what the results might be, the metrics you might pay attention to, et cetera?
Yeah, I'm not as scientific as I think as some of you are. I was a little more wanting to write a book for exposure, that I would kind of raise my profile a little bit. So was I looking at the metrics on Amazon? Not as you guys discuss. I was looking more for how many eyeballs am I getting on my author site? How many people are recognizing my name or saying, oh yeah, I've heard of the Green Velvet Chair. So mine were a little bit softer, I guess. Like I say, this is my second launch, or my second edition. So I'm hoping to come out with a little bit more, I guess, what's the word? Kick, I guess, because I just launched, like I say, I just had my physical launch last week. And with this campaign, I'm hoping that momentum will grow, and I'm a little more aware. This promo actually has really taught me a lot about launching a book. So it's been great. And the timing has been great. So.
Yeah, so you're referring to the tax refund Kindle cross promotion campaign, which, as we're recording this, today was the last day of that campaign. But yes. 3 times a year, I organize a Kindle cross promotion campaign, and you can get on the wait list by going to bizbookpubhub.com. So it happens for Laura, and this has actually happened to a few authors over the years, where their book gets published within a few weeks before. So we're part of the momentum out of the gate. We're helping drive traffic, get eyeballs on the page, and also authors, the best people to get reviews from would be likely prospects and referral partners, people who actually would be most excited about your content. The second group after that would be fellow authors, because whether fellow authors are themselves referral partners or prospects, they absolutely get the purpose of and the need for reviews, because they've had to do it themselves. So they're just a little more likely to help out. And so within this campaign, it was optional for authors to help each other out by writing some reviews. And so there's been a little bit of focus and activity around that as well. But I also always tell authors who are signing up, use the 2 weeks before that campaign kicks off to get more reviews. Like, your book's already discounted, go talk to 10 friends and get 5 or 6 more reviews, like just a few times a year. Because while, Amy, you've got a great out of the gate, it's about keeping that up. And not that you have to keep up 30 a week. Like, you don't have to like do volume anymore, but having some reviews come in throughout the year will keep you higher up on that results page for the search results than if you just sort of said, well, I'm done, I did it, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. But now it's less campaign style, and it's more someone said something nice to you via email, and you're like, hey, that's lovely. Could you share that as an Amazon review? Like, just kind of remind people of that. Kim, when you're working with authors, how much does this piece come into play? Like, are your authors writing books to help them grow a business? And are they thinking about reviews and social proof on their Amazon page? Or is it more the metrics of getting books sold? Like, what's the thing that you hear the most people talking about? Bestseller status?
Absolutely. So we work mostly with nonfiction authors as well as children's book authors, but I'll focus on the nonfiction authors. Yeah, a lot of times what we do is we focus on landing clients. You know, write your book so that you can establish yourself as a subject matter expert. We work with a lot of coaches, consultants, speakers, you know, who want to land clients and have that book as sort of the, and y'all have probably heard this before, business card on steroids, you know, like, hey, get to know me. I want to land this gig. This has been so cool because, Robbie, you had come on and taught a master class with us. So thank you again, grateful for that. So candidly, I'm learning more about getting reviews. We had focused in the past on doing bestseller campaigns, and you know, won't dive too far down that rabbit hole, but just was like, you know what else is out there? What else can we do for our clients to get more eyeballs? I always love to practice what I preach. And so that's why I've been doing this tax refund cross promotion. And it's been so cool to be able to, you know, meet with other amazing authors like y'all, and also to have a 2-year-old book start climbing up in the rankings and having more ratings. Hello. So this is going to be part of a strategy that I'm going to keep adopting and also have for our clients as well.
You know what I love about it, you just mentioned about having a 2-year-old book, is that I've had authors join whose books are 8 or 9 years old, but the content's evergreen and very relevant, but they haven't talked about it in 5+ years because they've moved on either to other books or other projects or other something, and their audience kept growing. So we kind of operate under the assumption that people just know us and know what we've done, but that's not true at all. That's not true at all. They meet us where we are, and if we aren't talking about our book, they don't really know we have one. We don't talk about our podcast or TEDx or whatever it is. So they would bring it up as part of this campaign and get a lot of, oh, I didn't know you had a book. They're like, really? But it was a while ago, and they just haven't talked about it. So I love the idea of reigniting the author's enthusiasm around marketing a really quality book that's still really relevant. So that's the other end from where Laura is, which is like a book that's just getting another start and getting a little boost that way. So I think it serves multi-purposes, and I do love that collaborative spirit of authors supporting each other in this space. Just want to touch on the whole bestseller status thing. I've met with so many publishers and writing coaches through signing people up to join the BizBook Pub Hub, and a lot of them had either internally some sort of plan for helping authors get bestseller status, or they would refer someone, hey, this is the person you hire to do that. And I'd say, oh, but we all know that's not like, you know, that important. They're like, yeah, I know. I'm like, so why are you talking about it with your authors? And the most common response I got was, it's what authors ask for. And my response back was, in what other scenario would the client provide strategy, not the expert? And so I think what you just said, Kim, was what else is out there? Part of why I think it was always defaulting a bestseller campaign is because it wasn't really clear what else was out there. And what I'm offering with launch strategy and focusing on reviews and building a pipeline is not easy to do. But I am writing a book on it. So by the time, you know, this airs, I'll be really close to it being out in the public. It's called Launch Your Book, an entrepreneur's guide to reviews that drive revenue, because I want people to have access to the information. So there is another way. And then there's a byproduct. If the book is going to hit #1, it's a byproduct of that strategic launch. So it's not that, I mean, I've hit it 30 times. I'm hoping to get a few more, right? Like, it's not like I'm like, oh God, no. It's just that I want to be clear on, bottom line, I need money in the bank account. Where does that come from? It comes from people I talk to in my network, which is actually something else I'm gonna come back to. I'll come back to Amy on this question, because I think Amy's probably was true for you. How clearly is this book tied to your overall business? I mean, I know you have other products. You have your Climer cards, which is a awesome deck of beautiful conversation starter, exercise, thinking. I mean, it's just really beautifully designed to be integrated into a workshop by you and others that have used it. So I knew you were already thinking about products in that sense, and you had been thinking about this book for such a long time, and you really created the IP around it. So does it, like, how tight of a dotted line is there from people read the book and go, oh my gosh, I love Amy, and then how do they find you, and what's the next sequence of things they could do with you, either for money or just to stay in your orbit?
Yeah, there definitely is a very tight connection between the book and the other work that I do. I have a consulting practice, and I teach teams and organizations how to be more creative, how to be more innovative. And the format of that is anything from keynote speaking to either short or long trainings, sometimes multi-day trainings, where we really go deep in depth, and also have some online courses. In fact, that's one of the things that I'm developing from the book, are some online courses, so that, because most of the work I do, it's like I will come into an organization and I'll work with either just their leaders or with their full team, or sometimes the whole organization, and which is great. I love it. But sometimes there's just like one leader who's like, but I can't afford to bring you in, but I really want to learn from you. And so that's in part why I'm doing these online courses coming up the rest of 2025 and beyond. And yeah, so there's a really tight connection between the book and the work that I do.
What I love is the idea that you built the book and then you're going to build the program, the online course or content. Because, and I actually, like, I created a version of an online program in order to support my ongoing clients, so that they had access to like what I do, like a library of resources, basically, all these video content, downloadable resources. But then when I did the book, now I'm like, I'm going to redo all that material because I worked so hard to streamline how I talk about it, the order that I talk about things, the level of detail. So I think having companion material can make sense for a lot of people. It doesn't have to be a full-on course. It could be other kinds of bonus content. Laura, did you have anything to draw people to your website, like any downloadable content, bonus material, contact information? Like, how did you attract people from your book to what else you do?
Yeah, I have a lot of downloadable PDFs on my website, and I also am involved in an anthology. So I'm hoping to be, connect with the energy from that group. So that's been interesting as well. I had a marketing coach, and she actually coined me the perspective shifter. So in my anthology, I have a tool in there about how you can become a perspective shifter. And actually, my book launch last week, somebody had said you should really do a workshop. So I've got lots of ideas on the go. Like I say, momentum has just really ramped up in the last little while. So lots of ideas, lots of things to do. And I think there's some likes to being a perspective shifter and shifting how we think and how we, the world is a very crazy place right now. How do we really be creative, critical thinkers? So that's part of what I'm planning to do.
I love that name. I love the moniker. That's really clever and catchy. And it makes me like instantly be like, oh, I know. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I want to know more about that. I also appreciate that having a book, you don't always know exactly what the end goal is for a business, but being open and listening. So even Amy, your desire to have a book much earlier in your career, it didn't happen till now, because now you have all this proven content and you had an audience that was asking for it. And while you could have probably year one come up with something to write, it wouldn't have been everything you've learned. I mean, even though you'd had a dissertation, it's like taking that dissertation and then translating it to like lived experience working with clients. Like, you've just had time for all of that to kind of mellow together and be more meaningful. You had all these case studies and examples, right? You have more to offer. And I think that it's interesting because I talked to some folks who are rushing to have a book, and I'm like, you haven't even, well, I'll say it came up the other day in a conversation. Someone said, I'm nervous about telling people that I'm writing a book because I think they're going to steal my idea. And I said, well, then you haven't talked about your idea enough. Like, you shouldn't be writing a book about an idea that you're not known for. Like, go get on podcasts, Amy.
There's actually an entire section in my book about this fear of stealing ideas and how it's just like, just stop worrying about that. There could be one idea that 100 people have, and it's going to be implemented differently. So I love that you brought that up. Yeah, just let that go.
Well, and I got interviewed by NPR about the content for my first book, which was also my TEDx talk. Notice a theme there. It was already my idea, right? Like I had claimed it in some big ways. And it went all over the place. Like croissants versus bagels is like a very catchy networking strategy about how we group in clusters or we have open spaces for people to engage. And people will see other people using my content, take a screenshot or take a photo and share it with me. And then I will meet that person who did the training. And they're like, oh, I had no idea it was yours. From now on, I'm going to mention that. Like, oh, you have a book? Oh, you're TEDx? Oh, you have an like, yeah, that's cool. But by the way, if you were to Google croissant and networking or bagel and networking, you're going to find my name. Like, I'm not worried about it, right? It's just like, hey, more people using the content. Like, I'm not afraid. So I love that you touch on that, because the piece around innovation and creativity and what's holding people back, which is similar to what's holding people back from writing a book. Kim, what do you see coming up for your authors around what's holding them back from bringing their full self and their voice into this process?
Oh gosh, yes. I love that we were just talking about the ideas, because often I have clients who go, well, so many people have written about this topic. And I'm like, your voice may be the one voice that comes through uniquely and resonates with that reader. I know I've had that experience where I'll read, I've read tons of books about, let's say, leadership, and then one shines through and I'm like, holy moly, I get it now. Yeah, I think that holds people back. I think there's a lot of fear about sharing who you are. I think people sometimes feel like they're exposed or vulnerable. And yes, there is some vulnerability to putting yourself out there, but like you're saying, Robbie, if you're talking about the ideas anyway, put them into writing. There's going to be so many more people, in my opinion, who benefit from what you say than go, I can't believe you said that. Those people were going to be there anyway, right?
Yeah. Laura, you already shared a little bit of vulnerability about being kind of a more of a quiet person, and your work is more personal. I mean, it's stories, it's your stories. It's not like a process. You were, like there's a way in which Amy's like, I'm teaching you a process. It's her body of work, but yours was very much more personal. So I actually would love to know what good stuff came from you taking that risk. Like you put yourself out there. Like now that you're an author, what doors opened?
Yeah, for me, the stories are personal, and a lot of people mostly men will come up to me and go, oh, they're personal stories about art and design. I'm not an artist. I'm not a designer. So the book's not for me. But I beg to differ. A lot of the stories are personal, but a lot of them are metaphors. And that's where I hope that other people will have that broader audience, that there's metaphors about vision and perspective and, branding. So there's lots of personal stories, but they're metaphors into bigger issues that I think we all need to learn about. And that's where the perspective shift comes in. It's like, it seems like you're talking about the house cat. There's one chapter that talks about a house cat, but he's looking through a window that has closed blinds. Well, it's not about the house cat. It's about me laying down beside him and seeing, what are you seeing from the closed blinds? And I'm seeing slivers of light through the blinds. And it made me realize how many of us are seeing the world through slivers of light in the blinds, and how many of us are opening the blinds and seeing the world wide open. So that's metaphoric, right? It's a story about a house cat, but not really. So my stories are as deep or as light as the reader wants them to be. So coming from a creative background, I like to think it's a calling card for me as I meet new clients, but it's also hopefully they're seeing that I'm a deep thinker and a critical thinker. And these are personal, but they're also, I think, metaphoric, which I think is important.
I love that. And in fact, when I was considering the line for what books can come be part of these Kindle cross promotion campaigns, it was a little difficult at first. And then it was sort of like, well, not memoirs. Well, narrative nonfiction is not memoir. Like just trying to understand these lines, I had to personally learn about them. And I think your book is an example of that blend where you're sharing something, but there's also a takeaway, and it positions you out in the world in the ways you want to be seen, which is beautiful. So speaking of that, like, answer the, because I'm an author blank, like what has transpired because you're an author?
I think, like I say, it's opened doors for me. It's made people, I think, recognize me more as oh, she's more than, she doesn't do lipstick. Her design is not lipstick. It's deeper. There's there has to be a result from what the design is. This is not just making things look pretty. This is doing meaningful design work. And I think the book gives credence to that. I think it also builds trust and credibility, that, oh, this person has decades of experience. She must be good. Or she's, like I say, she's coming at it from a different perspective. So I think it's given me credence and credibility. And I think it really helps build trust with new clients and current clients.
I also love that people can get a sense of who you are before even working with you. Realize that while there are lots of books on design, for instance, just like Kim said, there's lots of books on all kinds of things. Like, they get the sense of who you are, your voice, the way you look at the world, that makes them draw into you, magnetize to you, which is lovely when people come to you already feeling not sold, but like pre-conditioned to want to work with you. Like, they're like, oh, I like this person.
And I think the stories are universal. There's a story in the book about branding, but it's really me going to my 10-year high school reunion and having a really difficult time in high school and going to the reunion. And all of a sudden I'm accepted because I learned to do my hair and dress properly, right? So many people email me and go, you had problems in high school? Didn't know that. Me too. And it opens up that kind of that universal storytelling that we all have, right?
That's beautiful. Kim, and I'm going to come to Amy after about this as well. I'm curious, what was the most effective marketing strategy you had that either led to lots of book sales or lots of books being given away? Because I understand sometimes the strategy isn't to make money on an individual sale, but to just get the book to the right people. So Kim, how have you managed to get your book out into the world?
Absolutely. So I do love sharing it, especially if I want to do a speaking gig. I will send them a copy of the book and go, hey, get an idea about me, because I use, information, humor. They know I'm going to be, I like to think entertaining and get the word out that way. I also use it in my, I love that you say, sometimes we don't share that we have a book. I put it in my email signature block. Hey, have you read my book? I think that's a perfect way to get the word out. And then ever so often I'll quote myself. I'll put it on social media and have something where I can share about it, so that the way it keeps it fresh in people's minds. I wanted to share too, real quick, the way my book got started was I was asked to do a series of articles for an online magazine. And I asked them, I said, could I put these together into a book? And the editor was like, sure. Not only that, I'll write the foreword as well. So it was really nice to be able to be interviewed by her and get the word out through the people who were reading the magazine.
That's amazing. It also shows that, quote, writing a book takes so many different forms. Like, I actually was resistant to writing a book for a little while because I heard you should write a book and you have to get up early at 5:30 in the morning. And I was like, so I'm never going to write a book. Okay, got it. I'm not going to write a book. Look, I don't know how many people were like, oh, you just wake up extra early, like an hour early at 5:30. I'm like, who's waking up at 6:30? I'm not. I work from home. I am self-employed. My boss is mean enough to me. I am not also going to get up at 5:30 in the morning. Like, what are you talking about? So I just think there's one way to do it is like really dangerous when we're trying to encourage people to take it. And your method led to a great outcome because you got great content. You got credibility as you're writing it. You got feedback from the actual readers you want to be reaching. And then you got someone to give you the forward. I mean, it's just like beautiful, but you had to know to ask for it, right? You had to you can't just, I think so many times people are giving content and then forgetting that there's another shape that it can take. And likewise, now that you have the book, you can quote yourself, right? Like you can splice and dice. And this is where the AI, I think, tools can come really in handy, is trying to pull out tidbits, text, language. I think, a well-trained VA and a good AI tool can give you a lot to work with for creating all your content for like another few years, because you did the hard part of getting the content into a book. It should no longer take you 3 hours a week to create, social media posts or whatever, because you wrote a book. So Amy, what's been your method for getting your book out in volume? I mean, initially during the launch, it was all about individual sales to get the reviews, but now you're past that. How are you incorporating it into the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm still two months from launch date, so still pretty early here, and I actually have a sort of a bulk bonus thing that I'm doing, where if people buy at least 3 books and up to 68 books, even more, there's all these different levels of bonuses they can get. And by the time this audio goes live, this will have passed, but those of you who are listening live on the video, this is happening right now. And it's been really interesting. Like, I've had one client who I just worked with in the fall, did a training for many of the leaders in the organization. And he reached out and he said, "Hey, I want to get 60 copies of the book." And I said, "Great, that's amazing. If you get 68, you get all these perks." And he was like, "Okay, that's cool. I'll get 68." So he did. So it has helped just, sell a few more books that way. And yeah, it's been fun. I just had another.
What kind of perks?
So let's see. If you buy 3 books, then there's just some little freebies that you get emailed. For one, it's some tools that I use. There's like some templates that are extra. Okay, let me back up. There's also some freebies that you get just for buying the book. That's, they're you don't even have to really buy it, actually. Just go to this link and you can download the freebies. But then there's just some extras. And then if you get 10 books, I'm going to send you some stickers. At some point you get free Climer cards. I can't remember if that's 10 or 34. But then at 34 books, which is a case, I'm leading an online course that's happening, just a workshop, a 1-day workshop that's happening in 2 days on April 30th. And then and then I'm also, I'm getting like all the things mixed up. But basically there's a workshop, there's an online course that you can get access to, stickers, freebies, templates. There's just all sorts of things in there.
It's all things that would help them actually implement the content in the book. And it also inspires someone who's thinking about giving this book out, like they're buying it in bulk in order to give it to a team, to buy a few more. I mean, they might be buying for 60 people, but they don't know who else might show up. They might have new hires. Like, you should have a few of these like in the closet just in case, as you bring new people in who missed the original training, to get them caught up, right? So I love the idea that you're inspiring people to do a little bit more, and that you also figured out how many books in a case to like arrange for that. I mean, these are clever tips. Honestly, I'm repeating this just so that people listening could be like, oh, how many books are in a case? And that is dependent on the size of your book, right? And like, how do you find that out? You order books and you find out how many come in a case.
Well, if you're publishing through Ingram Spark at all, it'll tell you right there.
Yeah.
You just go to log in and it'll say, 1 case is 34 books or whatever it is. It's going to vary book to book.
Yeah. Very cool. I love this. So as we're wrapping up here, my question is going to just be advice you'd give someone who's writing a book to help them grow a business. Laura, do you have anything you'd like to throw out there that would help people think differently about their approach to the writing process?
Well, I think it's definitely write about what you know. Make sure you're a subject or, an expert on the subject. I think that's critical. I think it builds credibility and trust. And I think that's critical. The book has to come from an honest place. It can't just be a lot of jargon. So I think that's, it's really got to come from the heart, no matter whether it's a business book or a book on art and design or whatever. It has to come from the heart.
And Laura, how can people find you and follow your work?
I'm actually on Amazon, and I'm also I have a website, and this is going to sound really tongue-in-cheek, but it's badassballerini.com. And it's because I've kind of come through some challenges that I've realized I'm a badass. So it's badassballerini.com. Actually, there's a dash between Ballerini and badass. And you can download an excerpt from there. You can obviously order the book from there and learn about me. And that's it.
Awesome. We'll put all the links, by the way, in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com. Kim, quick advice, and then how people can find you.
Absolutely. I would say take turtle steps, meaning you don't have to do it all at once. It can feel daunting. Nobody runs a marathon all at once, right? So you don't have to write your book all at once either. Just take it a step at a time. And you can find me at kwepub.com. My company is Kiwi Publishing, but it's actually KWE because it's my initials. And if you go there, check it out. You can follow, you can find other amazing authors, and you can also find our upcoming master classes and webinars.
Fantastic. And Amy, advice and how people can find you.
I think the advice that I have is kind of building on what Laura and Kim said, is like, take your time and write the book. I feel like that there have been, and I guess part of that is that will lead to a better book. I think that's the point, that when, I've seen authors rush through and try to write a book in like 30 or 90 days or something, and then it's actually not that good. I've even seen them like be embarrassed about the book because they knew it wasn't that good. And then it's really hard to have to leverage that if you're not really proud of it. So I would say put in the work, write a good book, get an editor. Please do not publish anything out in the world without an editor.
Please.
I had a friend, someone I kind of knew, I didn't really know her well, and I was trying to support her, so I bought her book, and no exaggeration, on the first 2 pages, there were 7 typos that all would have been caught by Microsoft Word or something. And so I just couldn't even finish the book. Now that's an extreme example, but I just, work with an editor, write a good book. That's my advice.
Awesome. And how can people find you?
They can find me by going to climerconsulting.com, and Climer is spelled Climer. And you'll find the book there. The book's also on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. The book is Deliberate Creative Teams.
Awesome. Kate Colbert, one of our BizBook Pub Hub partners, when I interviewed her about this work, she said, and this is quoted in my book, which is why I'm remembering this, that some people treat their book as if it's garbage. Like when it stinks, they like rush it out of the house. Like, it's a book, I'm done. And that it's better, as she's a publisher and an author, it's better to have no book than a bad book. Like, do not rush this process. So I love all of your advice on this. All the links that we mentioned, plus links to things like LinkedIn and their books, will all be available at bizbookpubhub.com, which is also where you can find all these amazing experts who will, like Kathy Sparrow, who will help you through your author process of writing, editing, publishing, and marketing a book. You'll learn about the free virtual networking events I host every month and the Kindle cross promotion events that we host 3 times a year, plus all these show notes for this twice a week podcast. Go to bizbookpubhub.com. And panel, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank
you
Robbie.
so much.